Not to be a spoil sport.
No. No spoiling of sports, because that still got to happen. Wow, I actually made a clearer clap line than my clap line.
Interesting.
This is just us for 20 minutes doing Minecraft villager noises now.
I thought we were doing Grumpy Bert from Sesame Street. Actually,
No.
they kind of look similar, don't they?
Oh, a little
I think
bit.
that's where it came from.
Might be in the nose. Maybe.
Yeah.
What have you been doing this week? You had a good week?
Yeah, well, busy. I did the most Swedish thing ever yesterday. I went to IKEA.
I was going to say, have I been pronouncing it wrong for years?
You've been pronouncing it. I mean, like, I think Swedes gave up on trying to tell people it's not IKEA.
Oh.
So it's fine.
Well, to be fair, it's not Swedish people's job to correct the rest of the world on how to pronounce their words, right?
Well, it's also not really a word. It's an acronym. So it's like, who cares how it's pronounced, you know?
What's the acronym stand for?
It's the guy's name. It's like Ingvar something Atikbolag or something like that. It's like the guy's name and then company. It'd be like Joe Coco or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd shop at Joe Coco though.
Yeah. Anyway, then I had meatballs and then I bought a bed.
Nice.
So.
Nice. That feels like the wrong order to do it in. Yeah. Just because
I went
of
there with
meatball sauce and then mattresses being touched, but
I cleaned up after myself pretty good.
All right, mister. I wash my hands all the time.
Also,
Fucking
I would
rub
with
it
my
in.
heavily pregnant sister who was insistent on meatballs coming before shopping, which I understand.
That's fair. All right, so that was apartment furniture, I'm assuming?
Yep. Yeah,
nice.
Hopefully I'll move in this weekend.
Dope. I need your
packing up stuff.
I'm going to need your address so I can send you a warming present of some kind.
Sure. I can do that.
To figure out what. But I'll figure something out.
I mean, you haven't shipped anything transatlantic these days, have you?
No, I've received packages from the Netherlands before.
Yeah, no, it's it's not cheap.
No, I imagine not.
I think sometimes it's cheaper just to buy a plane ticket than bring it yourself.
Also, is something I need to do at some point. Just travel back to Europe. Kind of miss.
You should do that.
Traveling internationally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited because I'm visiting my family for the holidays, and everywhere else in America they've always lived at least 2 flights away from me. So I have to, at least I have one change minimum, but usually it's more. And then there's usually a pretty long drive after that. But now I get a direct flight, and it's not even terribly expensive. It's
nice.
Just a direct flight.
Hell yeah.
It's amazing.
So what's the time on a flight like that?
7.5, 8 hours, something like that.
That's not bad at all.
No, I mean, it used to be when they were living on the West Coast, I would fly from here to Iceland, then Iceland to Seattle, and then Seattle to where they were at, and it's that felt like going around the world, you know?
Yeah, sure would. Oh God, I had a flight nearly that length. That was just from the East Coast to the West Coast because we had winds that were just slowing us the fuck down. Tons of storms they were trying to get around. And on that same flight, first time I've ever thrown up in an airplane. I threw up multiple times, and it was because the AC broke, and it just got really hot and stifled in the cabin. And it just triggered this old childhood travel sickness kind of feeling in me.
Yeah.
And First time I made it to the bathroom. Second time the bathroom was not available, and I had to borrow someone's barf bag. Like, they weren't using it yet, but I had to just ask for it. Ugh. Not great. Not great.
Oh. What did you do this week?
Moving
on from plain stories.
Yeah. I went to, this last weekend, I went to an Irish music festival in Muskegon. So last time I went, it was this big fucking thing. They put it in the same place this time, but it was like this giant whiskey tent that was on this like built up deck just for the event. And
is a whiskey tent like a specific kind of tent, or is it just sponsored by a whiskey brand?
It was a specific tent to go and get all your whiskeys at, instead of like, if you just want to get beer and stuff, you could go to other places. They had them all over, especially like taps from breweries in town, like came and helped out. But then there was like Bud Light, Coors Light, all that stuff. And then they had this really cool tent built up on a deck that they built for the event. And it was there for 4 days during the event, and it was for whiskeys. And at different times of day, they'd pull out like the reserve bottles, and you'd have to like pay 10, 15, 20 bucks, I think was the cost of one of them, for like a half poured glass of good single barrel aged whiskey. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm loving this. I took a cigar with me. I haven't had a cigar in years now, but I was really excited. So this time I, again, brought like my cigars, and I was like, I think I'm going to have one today. Got a friend, and I was like, let's go to this. And he'd been before, and so we were excited, and we get there, and it is mostly now geared for children.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The whiskey deck tent was gone, replaced by a local distillery, and I use that in heavy quotes because they do not do their own distilling. They just buy from a distributor and sell it to us at a marked up price. And the only drinks you could get from them, and they still called it the same thing. It was like the Skull Tender. Don't come at, I don't know fucking Gaelic, but it was, you could have a gin and tonic, that, you know, famously Irish beverage, or you could have a whiskey mule, which, like, okay, fine. And it was kind of tasty. It was just like the basic Brix ginger beer, like mix with some lime juice and a okay whiskey. But I was like, fuck, like, it's just,
that's
and
lame.
And it was right next to what was meant to be the main children's like music stage, because they had 4 stages for music in the area. So I'm trying to drink a whiskey mixture of some kind and have a nice buzz going, and it's Puff the Magic Dragon, but like in a very Irish tune being sung by a bunch of children. And I'm like, they shouldn't have had these 2 areas next to each other. Like, the playground's just across. I can just see the playground for where I'm sitting. So
that's such a weird phenomenon now. Like, it seems like, I mean, nowadays there's, I don't know. I haven't been in America in a long time, but before I left, it felt like there was a lot of that with like the brew pubs, like catering to like young parents. Like, a lot of places I'd go, they'd have like areas for kids nearby. And one place I went to, and I swear it was more kids than it was adults. Like, it felt like a Chuck E. Cheese, but without games and a large bar, which was fine, I guess. It's not like any of the kids were drinking, but it was just it's a very, like, I don't think it's inherently bad, but I do think it's a very strange, like rubber band from like our childhood restaurants of like your Applebee's and Red Lobsters and stuff, where like everything's very separated. You have a smoking section, you have a non-smoking section, the bar is over there, you know, like that's kind of the dining experience growing up, and obviously that's changed a lot. But
places. Go ahead.
No. I was going to change the subject.
Oh, and I was just going to say most places around here still adhere to like the after like 6 or 7. I think it's like around 7. Your kids can't be in here anymore. But if you want to drink any earlier in the day before that and not feel like you have to filter what you're saying, at least I try to filter when I'm around kids, right? But you have to go to like one of the really sketchy bars downtown that's like,
yeah, the ones that don't have windows in the front.
The ones that don't have windows, and there's almost always some kind of white supremacist there trying to recruit you into their club. So Yeah.
Yeah. So before we go down that rabbit hole, actually, in defense of Irish gins, when I was in Dublin, actually, a few years ago, I bought 3 bottles of gin. They were all pretty good, actually. So, I mean, everywhere does gin now, but they're fairly decent. So,
Sure.
I mean, maybe they're not famous for it, but also I think like everyone makes gin now.
I mean,
So,
that makes sense, but like, this wasn't like a modern Irish festival. This was supposed to be like
no.
culturally, which also, and maybe I'm just ignorant of my historical cultural facts of the area, but it was a lot of like kilts and log throwing and bagpipes, and I was like, I know that's Scottish, and I'm sure they traded and might have swapped some culture with each other, but that feels more squarely in Scottish than Irish.
Yeah, like the tossing the caber is very Scottish. I don't think that's something the Irish do, but maybe they do. I don't know. Not something I've encountered ever.
Yeah.
And the kilts thing is also not really an Irish thing,
Yeah.
to my knowledge.
I wanted to get one, but they had to like fit you for it and then put in the order, which I was fine with, but the lines were way too long. So
Yeah. I'm good without a kilt.
I'd wear kilt. I'm a big guy. Sometimes in the summer, that would be really refreshing.
Yeah, I believe it. I don't want to be that refreshed though. Like I like having a stable temperature. Like I don't even like having seat warmers.
No, I actually don't. It's a prank that I've had pulled on me by family who know that I like things very cold. That they'll just sneakily turn on the seat warmer wherever I'm sitting and wait. Ugh. Then my ass is just sweaty for an hour after.
Well, we need to end these things like.
What, sweaty ass isn't a good transition?
I don't know where I'm supposed to go with that.
You're supposed to yes and it.
I don't want a yes and sweaty ass.
Okay, fair. That's fair. Oh, shit. Well, speaking of sweaty ass.
Oh, God. Welcome to the Save State. It's a podcast where 2 guys play a video game and talk about it. Maybe you haven't played the video game, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
And
probably.
I'm Arvid. That's Mike.
I'm Mike.
And
he's Arvid.
We played a game that's pretty new, only came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Called Void Stranger.
Void Strangers.
Yeah,
Stranger?
I thought it seemed interesting from its review. One of the rare occasions where I've actually come across a game on the Steam suggestion thing that looked interesting. I have been loath to do more and more as Steam becomes a place for people to dump their like porn games.
I was gonna say, you can say it, porn games.
I mean, it's fun. Like, I don't know.
That's on me for turning off like the adult filters. Because I was like, fuck it, I'm an adult. I can see whatever I want. But now it's
I
like,
can tell you, so
my
with the adult
list is like
on
half fill.
It doesn't even stop there. But like, I mean, let's just have that in a separate section. Anyway. And this was fun at first. I thought it was kind of meta. It does some cool stuff. So it like to preface all this, it's like a puzzle game done with very simple graphics. I would say Game Boy-esque, like original Game Boy is probably the first thing that came to mind. The puzzles are almost exclusively block moving puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole thing kind of feels like a perhaps Game Boy Zelda, but only like the block moving parts, like the bits of not Link's Awakening actually, but Link to the Past, where you like have that rod and you're moving around blocks.
Yeah.
In some of the dungeons, that's essentially what this is, but like with hundreds of puzzles of just that, and without anything else.
Yeah,
I mean, not anything else, because there's actually a lot of stuff that's besides that. But
the main
gameplay loop is the
didn't
puzzles.
link it, to that game because for me, the first game I saw was one of my favorite games on the Nintendo when I was growing up, and it was called The Adventures of Lolo, and it was just this
Oh right,
massive puzzle game where the whole point is like there's enemies that when you move into their spaces, I guess it actually was very similar to this because I remember every time you move, some enemies would move. Some enemies would move. If you moved into their vision range, they'd come at you and attack you. Or
Right.
they'd shoot something at you. So you had to strategically think how you would move the box and obstacles around on the map to get to either a key to unlock a door or get to an objective to get to the next floor. So as soon as I started playing this, I was like, loved one of these games growing up. I'm going to have a great time with this one.
Yeah. And it does like some kind of meta aspects. Like I don't want to say, but like fourth wall breaking mechanics. I think I was kind of hoping this would end up being kind of like a puzzly Undertale thing.
Yeah.
I guess is to be because like one of the first things, and I don't want to talk too much about it without spoiling things because a lot of the plot is told in like flashbacks or memories or dreams that the character has. When you reload a save or when you open the game back up. And one of the fun mechanics about this is that whenever you save, it kicks you out of the game. Like, it enforces you, like, it makes you not play all these levels all at once, which is good, frankly. And then when you come back, you get a bit more of the story, and then you can move on. Which seems like a good idea, because, like, frankly, these puzzles can get pretty tedious pretty fast.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that it made me take breaks.
Yeah, maybe I would have liked this game more if we hadn't been playing it within like granted, this was actually a longer time frame than we normally have for playing a game, just due to a scheduling error on someone's part. But more time between interacting with this game would have been better. It's like kind of playing a crossword, right? Like you want to get in, you want to do your best on it, and then when you're done with that, don't go to the next fucking crossword. Like give your brain some rest. Like go do something else. And
yeah, look, I was pretty good about like just playing. Like I played for up till break, and then I stopped playing for a day. Well, the first time, then I played only like 2 sessions the next day. But even then, by like the 7th like session, I was getting pretty burnt out on the puzzles. I have to admit, they get progressively harder. And initially, you tend to like, it feels like you have. Well, I know you have a lot of different solutions. You can see them as you go, and it kind of got to the point where you stop seeing solutions, and you start kind of having to try things out and see what works and what doesn't. And in the latter ones, it felt like I was spending 20 minutes on a puzzle after, and I was like at puzzle 125 or something at this point. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So I wanted to look up, and I know there's like, I looked it up just to see how many levels there were. I wasn't looking for spoilers or anything like that. And there's over 200 of them.
Yep, sure are.
So I was like, okay, well, I think I've got the gist of this game.
Yeah, even with getting like transported or skipping floors, sometimes you'd find a way through to another area that sent you down way further than you, like just the one floor you were trying to go down. Usually from messing up and falling off of something and falling down even further. But
I never encountered that.
oh yeah, there was time that I moved from like floor 30 something to floor like 78.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh shit, there's things here that I haven't seen before, so I just had to, in the moment, learn those mechanics. And that's what I liked about this game. That is the part of the puzzle game that I liked. There was this nice little dopamine drip for the first, I'm going to say about 100 floors, where, yes, it's challenging, yes, it's not that repetitive, but what you had in almost every one of those was a new element being added to the puzzles. It goes from tiles, now you've got some glass ones around that you have to learn, well, how do these interact? Oh, I can step on them, but when I step off, they break. Or, you can do these little movements around. I can take one of these glass tiles. Yes, they're interactable. Not everything can be taken by the rod that you wield and placed elsewhere. Or when I realized like I can use stuff in the area to like lure an enemy in, and before they get to me, pull the tile away and essentially lock them in positions. There's all these little strategies you learn that make you feel really good and smart. And it's the fun aspect of the game. And then at a certain point, they stop introducing those and it just becomes more difficult. Like to a point where I just stopped having fun because, like I said, I was banging my head against the wall for 20 minutes on a puzzle and just, all right, I'll come back later. And then still couldn't find a way through, and I just gave up at a certain point. I think I was on like the 160th, 170th floor, somewhere around there, but I gave up.
Yeah, like it really got to the point where like I could see myself like if I had this on the Switch, and I would just like kind of like if I was doing like I like to play puzzle games and like when I'm winding down before bed, put it on the Switch, boot it up, do one of these puzzles, put it down. That's fine,
Mm-hmm.
But because of like maybe it's because we're doing it for this podcast, or we had a limited time to play it, or maybe it's just because I did want to get to the next save point so I could get the next story the next time I played. It was frustrating me that I wasn't like getting there. Like I think if it was like just a game that you had all these puzzles on like a menu and you selected the next one, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But because like I knew I had to get to the next bit of story there, it was frustrating me.
Yeah. And I have now looked up a few more things about the game as far as how the ending of this is supposed to work. And while I didn't click on any videos to watch an ending, that's mainly because there's multiple ways that it ends.
Yeah.
And that's fine for an Undertale kind of game, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want to have to redo all of these puzzles over and over again. Maybe the floors change each playthrough. Maybe they're not the same. I don't know, but I don't have a desire to find out either myself.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if these puzzles were more my bag, I find block moving puzzles like just completely fine in games, but like as soon as I have to like, as soon as it becomes more than just like a one-off thing, or where then it stops being fun for me. Like I just don't find those kind of like or the puzzles where you like what are those called? The tile puzzles where they're all mixed up, but you have to move them around to get them. But yeah,
I'm
those
good at those. I don't necessarily like them.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I that just they I think they work in a similar part of my brain, and I don't dislike it, but if I have to engage with it for a long period, it wears itself out pretty quickly.
Yep.
So I guess that's part of like why I was kind of hoping this game, like I had a lot of hope for this game. I mean, because initially I was having a lot of fun with it. I was intrigued when I realized all the meta stuff it was doing. I wanted to see where it was going to go with that, and then I was kind of thinking this might be that thing that gets me over my distaste of these kind of block moving puzzles. But after 125 levels, 130 levels or whatever, I did just kind of get worn out.
Yeah. And it doesn't take up a lot of space, so I'm not necessarily going to uninstall it yet. I will give it the college try and like go back to it in a little while. Maybe that's part of the point. Maybe we'll find that taking a break longer than just a little bit does more to it, but I highly doubt that.
I wouldn't. I would say that wouldn't surprise me, but it also felt like they kind of like they broke the fourth wall really early on, and then they just kind of didn't explore that fourth wall very much, at least in my gameplay. Which I think kind of was like, okay, well, that was fun, but where are we going with that?
Yeah. And now I'm just thinking of other ways they could have done that, where like you think you shut it, like it force closed itself, but it's not. It's just doing stuff with your desktop then. I don't know. That could have been fun too, to a degree.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. There was just more I wanted from this. And really what I wanted for this was more mechanics stacked on top of each other. Learn from previous puzzle games, right? And implement those mechanics together in a fun new way where every 5 or 6 floors, you're learning something new, right?
Yeah.
And then the
It
old
did kind of
puzzle
feel
elements become rote, but they just stopped.
Yeah, well, there was like one toward the end. There were a few like the whole push blocks onto creatures thing.
Sure.
Like that was, but at the same time, like it felt like I think the big difference is that it started feeling constricting as opposed to exploratory, because I felt like I was learning these mechanics and finding ways of playing with them, and then as I went on, it stopped being about finding ways to play with them, but using the right mechanics in the right order according to what the solution for the puzzle was.
In the
And
right sequence of steps.
in
Like
the
that's
exact right
the
sequence of
yes.
steps. That's the other thing. You have like a very restricted movement in this game. Like you can't really turn around. You can turn around, but you can't like turn around and activate something. You have to like move onto another tile and then move forward and then back. So in order to like pick up the thing you were standing on, you have to have 2 tiles in one direction. It's just it makes sense when you play it, but it is a limiting mechanic, which I guess makes sense, but also I think was frustrating initially, but before I got used to what it wanted from me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not even for just the awkward, clunky reorientation of your character, but so many of the enemies on it relied on you moving too in this kind of weird turn-based format. And then sometimes they just didn't, right? Some of them just don't. And that was a weird, I don't know. There was just something about this that didn't fully click with me. And that's okay. There's not supposed to be, every game out there isn't going to be one I enjoy. But I wanted to enjoy this so much. I like puzzle games. I like these kinds of puzzle games to a degree. But I don't like this. I don't know what genre this like rhythm game puzzle block system is, but no thank you.
Yeah, like I think I could have liked this more if less of it. Like I feel like you don't need to have 200 puzzles to tell your story, maybe. I don't know, maybe save that for a sequel or something.
Yep. There's a lot of puzzles that could have been cut out.
Maybe they could have done something like Celeste, where you have like the hard mode levels and the remix levels that you do after you beat the game or whatever.
I kind of like this idea. Cut the puzzles into different difficulties, right? Have multiple paths of completing a puzzle. The ones where you take the shortest amount of time to complete it while still getting the most amount of stuff. That means you fucking aced it. The next one's going to be a hard floor for you, right? Then maybe you don't do so good at that, so the next one's going to be medium, right? And it just takes one of these 3 different puzzle difficulties and slides it into place for you, depending on how well you did. So that way, if you really want this to be for the story, people who aren't as good at puzzle games could still progress through on the easier floors and still experience the story. I don't know. There's some way they could have made that a little more accessible. Not that that's got to be the point, but...
No, like, and I feel like the problem isn't necessarily that it's accessible. It's just like it's like I wouldn't mind spending 20 minutes on a puzzle especially if I didn't have the podcast to record.
Sure.
But like the way it drip feeds the reward for that puzzle, the puzzles, and then every once in a while there was like you get like a rush of puzzles that were like narratively driven. Like I don't want to explain it, but there's like actual story, because aside from a few occasions, the story almost exists entirely outside of the puzzles. And then you go through these kind of like dead zones where you don't see any of that, and you forget that you're playing, like your game actually has a narrative until you get to a save point and you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I just feel maybe pacing was something I would have liked more. I would have liked more bits of...
I also think you might have experienced more of the narrative than me, since I somehow was able to skip floors, which would be really interesting.
I mean, there's at least 2 characters I encountered probably in that chunk of levels that you probably didn't then. So
I encountered a couple. I only was able to actually interact with one of them. The other one got eaten pretty quick. So
maybe they're randomized.
Maybe. I don't know.
Anyway, Yeah, if you like block puzzles and Game Boy. No, Birdie, shush. There's no one there. Birdie, Birdie. He's barking at the back window. We're on the second floor. There's nothing there.
Is it Captain Hook?
It's not Captain Hook.
Could be.
Oh, actually, he does kind of look like that dog, doesn't he? Never thought of that before. I've only had it for 7 years. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I probably would have had a different experience if I wasn't trying to play this for a podcast. This is just something I got to play on my Switch and pick it up and put it down, pick it up and put it down. I probably would have had a better response to the way it's paced, but as it is, just didn't click with me.
Yeah. Just didn't like it. I don't want to go so far as to call it a bad game. I don't think it's... There's a crowd here that I'm sure absolutely fucking loves this.
Oh, yeah. I am 100% certain that there are a lot of people who really like this game.
Yeah.
It just didn't... Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Just something about it just couldn't click for me. I don't have that in me.
Oh.
That's okay.
Yeah, maybe if I see it on Switch and it's on sale, I'll give it another shot or something.
That actually I would probably do. Or it might not be as easy. It should be easy on mobile. I'd do it on mobile even.
Yeah,
I'd see that.
Oh, excuse me. Birdie, don't make me close the door. So yeah, maybe take a quick break and figure out what the heck the deal is with my dog. And then we'll do some news.
Go pop off to Neverland. Neverland.
No, actually, I'll just see if maybe he just needs to go potty.
Probably.
Right back.
All right.
Now to Mike with the news.
What? I can do that better. All right, wait, I might have accidentally moved into copyrighted issues there. News!
So what great news do you have for us?
So, Microsoft's attempting to go through this whole acquisition process of Blizzard Activision, right?
Yes.
Or this attempt.
Yeah.
So more and more keeps coming out from the emails of the upper echelons of Microsoft, kind of communicating with each other on this plan. And I don't know if you saw the latest brazen thing that they were just throwing out there, but they are really pushing for the acquisition of Nintendo as well.
I wouldn't say really pushing. I believe the phrase was, if Nintendo or Valve became available, I'd be interested.
No. I mean, but they actually already showed a proposition to the board of directors on what that kind of acquisition would look like, and it was approved. And definitely not quote, but you can quote me paraphrasing them. Nintendo just doesn't realize their future isn't in hardware, in their own hardware.
Yeah.
Which... I know I've said something similar in the past, but I don't think it's necessarily true. I mean, obviously, this is going to be their position, right? They're a competitive hardware company as well as everything else these days. But I do love how in the same process of talking about Nintendo, they also just throw out Valve. And they're just like, oh, yeah, and Valve, that Steam whole platform, we might also do that, too. It's like, what? Carrie Newell's already been like, no, this isn't happening. Not in a billion years.
What I think is funny is that Microsoft calls out Nintendo for not seeing the way of hardware going, but don't you see I mean, I guess you still make software, but I don't think the Xbox is gonna be doing so hot in the future either.
Nope.
Especially if you literally have everything on the Xbox that's on PC.
Yep.
What's the
the moment they announced that they were going to be releasing things jointly for PC and Xbox, I was like, oh, thank God I never have to buy an Xbox.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I go to the on the occasions I go to a store what sells video games here in Sweden.
Mm. Is it just
Xbox
Babbage's
stuff. Yeah, Babbage sons.
There you go.
No, but it's like it's always like they're just trying to unload anything that Xbox related. Games are always really cheap. The consoles are not. I mean, they're cheaper than every other console, but not necessarily worth buying by any means. I don't know a single person who has one here. It's. And then you read about how much money they lost trying to put out the latest this generation of Xboxes in Japan. Like, no one was having it.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder too, with the way Game Pass works, how many of these developers are getting really fucked out of some good money for actually like going through a more legitimate process of getting their games out there, because a lot of them have these like exclusives. Like, not to jump ahead, but I'm playing a game through Game Pass right now that was a day one release, and I probably would have paid real money and bought it if that wasn't an available option. And I wonder how much more they would have seen in sales if this wasn't the setup, because I have a hard time believing that Microsoft is fairly compensating them. I'm sure there's some metric that they're always failing at to get the real good money, that good,
well,
you know?
I mean, I honestly don't know, because like, what's the overhead on an online game, hosting an online game for Xbox, right? Like, you have the server upkeep. I mean, assuming it's just a little indie game, that can't be that much.
No, and you're usually going to go like cloud servers anyways, right? Like, even if you're Microsoft, you're probably hitting up Amazon for some of that space.
Yeah, so like, there's no obvious reason why they wouldn't be able to fairly compensate the people whom they buy these things from. And I don't know that they necessarily don't. I know Epic certainly has paid quite a bit for their when they do exclusive deals, they compensate them quite a bit. So I don't know. I'm not saying Microsoft does. Yeah, I honestly just don't know enough about that to really even talk about like how these guys are getting paid for these things. I know that's one of the big, not to transition to the next news story, and that's one of the problems they've been having with the proposed new Unity pay structure.
Oh, which is yes,
just like thievery. So Unity has decided, the company that makes Unity has decided that Unity, for the record, being the engine of choice for a lot of indie video game developers, as well as bigger ones, that they are going to start charging developers for the usage of the engine on a per download basis. And that also applies to any existing contract or any games that are already out going forward.
Yeah.
And they've already said that they've taken measures to try it. Like, a big part of the backlash, I mean, calling it backlash implies that it's like there was a forelash. I don't know. I guess my point is that like this is just a terrible thing and a bad idea and a bad business decision.
Yep.
But like, part of the concern was like, okay, this is going to be like, what would we do about like free download periods or sales or when they're on streaming services, or piracy. And I don't think anyone has the faith in Unity or any software company right now to be able to track all that accurately.
Well, let me alleviate some of those concerns, because in a recent all-hands meeting, the CEO of Unity, Riticilio, I'm not even going to try to Riticilio. I'm not going to try to say it properly, but I will do my best to not say it offensively. They have heard from, developers and gamers alike, and they understand that this is not good. Their defense is, there's no good way we could have announced this, and my response to that is, never have announced it. Or say you're going to stop.
Yeah.
Instead, they're doing like a half backpedal, and I think they've actually made it worse. So, what they've decided to do is, so they were going to have their own proprietary software that would monitor these installations. They've now gone to, it's based on self-reporting, which... if you're this company and you're still seeing this as a major way to get like flush with cash, because maybe they're trying to be acquired. Who knows what the fuck's going in their mind right now? Then that is so easy for them to just get a third party to install it a bunch and just say all that, or don't even install it. Just say. There's no metric behind it. You don't have to show your work. You can just say we had this much this year, and if you want to challenge us on that, we'll see you in court. But here's your bill. Like, I don't know how this is supposed to fucking work. It's wild.
And the gall of making this apply to games that have already shipped, and like this would, from what I understand, this would apply to every Unity game, every game made in Unity, like for years, like
yes. Yes, some of my favorite games are from these developers called Kairosoft. I love their little business sim games. They're so super fun. Game Dev Story is one of their games. It's really fun little game that you can play on mobile or on Steam. I have it on both. Love these. I'm playing their retail game right now. And what they want to do is take 4% of their revenue from this poll. Like, that is insane.
Well, was it? I mean, I've read that the minimum is what there's a minimum for it of per download or something like that.
If you have made over $1 million, it's not even the per. If you have made over $1 million, you are now going into this. They will cap it at not taking more than 4% of your revenue, but that's still a fuckload of your revenue.
Isn't it like a $4 a download or something like that to begin with?
That one I have no clue. That. It's probably a percentage of it, but
yeah, I mean, it would make sense for it to be a percentage, but
I'm sure there's a scale on that.
And I mean, like, and what about like people who have already made the money off of the game?
Yeah,
like there's also it's like you've made your game, it had its heyday, no one's downloading it anymore. You put it on Steam, you drop the price, no big deal. Now you're gonna have to jump the price back up to justify having it because you made all that money on it to begin with. I don't know.
It's going to make sales really, really, like, I wouldn't go into a sale if I was using Unity on my games. I need all the fucking money I can get to cover this bill.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't have a choice with like Steam and those things. Like, I think not putting yourself in sale areas in Steam is difficult. I just don't think that. I don't know why anyone would use Unity going forward, especially now that this company's capable of this kind of horse shit. Yep. It doesn't matter if this is it and this is it forever, or they backpedal on this completely. Like, what other crap do they? I mean, if the contract you have with Unity by using this product is this open to just them doing whatever they want with you, like, why would you work with these people?
Yeah,
unless you have to, and but that's the thing, you don't have to.
You don't have to. If them or Microsoft or any of these other people seemingly had their say, they would be the only option, but they're not.
Yeah, I mean, like, compared to Unreal, which Unreal is very generous in its profit sharing. I think it also takes a 5% off the top after a certain amount, just like Unity does. If you host your game off on Epic, the amount they subtract the amount that you would owe from the Unreal license, the amount you would owe by using the Epic storefront, minus the amount you would owe by using the Epic storefront would subsume the cost of licensing Unreal.
You got it in one, and it sounded very natural. Yes,
you can tell I talk about these things a lot.
No, I'm just trying to not go into like a full. I want to be calm about this, right? Because I'm getting a little worked up because this just really pisses me off when companies do this shit. Like, yes, can you? Sure, I guess you can try to do any of this, but you're doing so much damage. Like, now Unity is in my mind stained. Like, I don't see it as a good, like, get the fuck off that engine. You don't need it.
No, and also part of the problem is the way Unity is as like a product in like the sense of like brand recognition. It's like something to be like, most people don't know the name of the engine the games they play in or what they do. It's just like, oh, this is an Unreal game, or like I once watched a video about how to get into game dev and it talked me through how to use a Unity or whatever. Like, not much beyond that, but like after this. Like, no, that's not what everyone's thinking about when they hear Unity. I mean, for a long time, to be fair, also Unity was like synonymous with like crappy, like cheapo shovelware games on Steam.
Sure.
Like, it was a bad thing, and then it finally got some
Because
cred
it's
as
cheap.
like indie developers
It's
figured out
simple,
what to do
right?
with it too. Yeah, and there's a lot of different add-ons you can get to it, and
Mm-hmm.
it was fairly user friendly. And then what they went public a couple years ago, and surprise, surprise, having like shareholders that you are beholden to constantly make like quarterly money is a bad way to like maintain a customer base.
Yeah. I I don't know. I just I th- big brain college talk right here. I feel like we're too obsessed with constant growth, right?
Yeah,
In all sectors right now, and that's not always good. If you're profitable, you're fucking profitable. That's it. You don't have to constantly be growing. You don't have to be constantly innovating and creating new things. Just make a fucking good product and do it well. People will respect you for it. This is
and don't
this is
treat your
just
employees
such
like shit.
shitty. Yeah, well, that too, but like, I don't know. Like, eat the rich. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, like, also, like, I mean, this is, in one way, it's going to be good because all these game devs are going to have to go back to, like, learning how to code, I guess. I don't
Fuck
know.
yeah.
Or
Fuck yeah. We get a new,
I
like,
mean,
indie garage revolution of game developers.
I mean, in all honesty, it'll probably be a lot of people use Unreal
Yeah.
and other engine. Like, I know there's some other ones that exist out there. Those will
Oh, yeah.
probably get used. And the other thing, like, one of the things that makes Unity so special is how easy it is to put games out on mobile and PC and have them be compatible in other
Yep.
platforms. Like, that's the thing that makes Unity special. So until there are other things that make it as easy to make games for as many platforms, Unity's still probably going to have a pretty significant piece of the pie.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, gosh, because they can come for you from what's happened before. I just was thinking, like, would you pull your games from markets right now if you were Unity based and just try to like stop this STEMI? But that doesn't matter. People could uninstall and reinstall your game constantly if they want to. It's not about the download, it's the installation. Which,
Yeah,
fuck.
which is, I mean, like, I don't even understand I guess, like, on one hand, for mobile developers, you don't tend to have people who uninstall and reinstall stuff on their phone all the time.
Sure.
They tend to, like, download something, dump it, and whatever. But, like, PC people, I mean, I don't know, like, why this model of it, like, I don't know.
This makes no sense. This is the
No.
exact type of stuff where you are so disassociated from the actual product. They're not calling it a video game. I guarantee none of the people in these boardrooms are mentioning the words video game ever. They're just calling
Yeah.
everything content, right? Or
Yeah.
product. And that's it to them.
Yeah.
It's just these little numbers on these charts moving around, and oh, when we push these buttons, these numbers go up. Look at line big. I want line big. That's it. That's all they're fucking doing.
What I think is interesting, though, is that if they had tried to be less cute about this and they just said, like, your percentage is now 6% instead of 4% or whatever,
Sure.
like, whatever it would have taken for them to get the same amount of revenue increase, people probably wouldn't have balked at it. They'd probably been like, oh, Unity's charging us more. That's annoying. But, like, doing this and then, like, making it effective on games that have already been out for years.
Yeah.
It makes me want to go back to discs. Is what it
It is so fucking wild. And my God, Nintendo's got to be high-fiving themselves. Everyone said cartridges were dead.
I mean,
But
seriously,
holy
like, I mean,
shit.
it does make me wonder if, like, the future for like an indie dev isn't like selling discs of this stuff. Like,
Going back to
seriously,
the
like, if
old
you
school,
want-
like in a back of a magazine, you send me this money to this address and I will mail you.
Well, I mean, like, you already see Bandcamp. Like, I don't really use Bandcamp, but it's a good place for like
I'm
indie
familiar.
artists and everyone else to put their stuff on there.
Mm.
And it has a built-in storefront, and you could buy the CD or the LP like right from there. People sell their T-shirts on there. It's you know, I mean, obviously Bandcamp takes a cut, but it's a good way of distributing stuff. Maybe we need to go back to doing that with games. Just turn itch.io into Bandcamp for video games and start like sending discs around.
That would be
If
great.
This is what, Like if that's where these companies want to go with this stuff, where they're all like trying to justify increasing their prices because they have to keep up cloud storage or whatever the fuck. Like,
I mean, I think that's
you know,
actually a better idea anyways, because most people are not ready to have the conversation about like what happens to your Amazon Prime movie library that you've cultivated over the years when they inevitably go under, like when something happens, right? Like this
because they
stuff
try
will
and
get
buy
lost.
out like Gulf and Western or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, they buy
exactly.
Twitter next. Like that'll be what'll happen. Bezos will be like, step aside, Musk. Let me show you how it's done, and then crash that shit even worse. That's it.
Yeah, he buys Detroit Diesel or something. No, like but like the yeah, I mean, I also have a giant Steam library that is not getting any smaller. So,
no, of course, yeah. I mean, this is a real issue that we have to come to Jesus with at some point, because we're gonna lose it all. And it's gonna get messy.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few companies that survive that long, and just having all of this stuff in this format is like, this is too big a conversation.
No, but how many games do you think you have right now in your library of games that those developers do not exist anymore? Those studios are gone.
Oh, dozens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, the thing is like, if Steam died tomorrow, like, the number of things I have, like, digital media within my reach that I have on something other than, like, my Steam library is I have a copy of like Wave Race on PlayStation, like in this desk drawer, and that's be about it.
I think I'm just going to start investing in more choose your own adventure books. Get really into those.
Yeah, sure.
I just am worried about the precedent this will set. Like, if they get away with this, Unreal will dip their toes into it next, right? Like, and probably not Unreal to start, but like, I think this will start a thing where they're all going to start looking at each other, these game engine companies, and going, why aren't we doing this with Crytek? Like, why aren't we doing this with Frostbite?
Well, not that many people use Crytek.
Sure, but
certainly, but I see what you're saying. But like, I think that like with Epic, they're still trying to be the good guy for as long as they can.
Yeah,
and they seem to be. I mean, they still have Fortnite to make money for them, so they don't need to necessarily.
That's true. There's so many hats in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, hats in the not the literal term, but
I mean, there's probably a lot of hats
Team
in the
Fortress
term
term,
as well.
but sure.
And I don't see Steam doing this because I mean, the Source Engine's been free or essentially free for so long. Like the entirety of Valve's like identity is based on like ease of access to their engine. So
first games I ever made or modded were through Steam.
Yeah, I mean, so
really Valve before
Source
that.
Engine was, yeah, exactly. So, I guess I think that in the near term, like short-term quarterly earnings reports will go up. The long-term integrity of Unity is probably a bit fraught.
There used to be this balance that you were supposed to do in a company that balanced like the will and desire of the shareholder with the responsibility to the public. And I feel like that's just that scale is just slowly been like, it needs a tune up for rebalancing is what I'm saying. It needs to be zeroed out. They need the tear button hit on it.
Yeah. And I think also part of the problem is just where the cult, like not to get too far into all this crap and speculate about stuff, but like software corporate culture, that is to say like the modern video game tech dudes is doesn't have like, it didn't evolve out of anything. It kind of just appeared. So it never had to like inherit like IBM's like corporate policy and stuff like that, like other like hardware companies have had to do or whatever. It's like a whole different ecosystem. So they've never like, they have no elders from which to learn.
Yeah, and it's never been challenged before, which is always a fun thing of like, well, they're going to try to do it, whether it's legal or not. It's, we'll find out later when it gets challenged. But they've not been challenged either legally or through the public yet. Although they're sure as shit starting to be.
No, the one scary comment I saw when I read an article about this was Like, don't let Adobe hear about this. Because, like,
Jesus.
imagine they got a hold of this idea. That you have
Oh,
to pay per
fuck.
install of any other. People would actually start using GIMP at that point. I mean, people would respect GIMP for the magical
Say,
suite of
I use
options
GIMP.
it is.
Can you not tell
I like
from the high quality of our splashes?
Yeah, no, I think GIMP is a wonderful little piece of software. All right, so let's move away from the depressing news
Please, I'm gonna close these articles
to
because
a slightly less depressing quiz based
ooh,
on the news that we just read.
oh,
So I'm going to give you a game,
okay,
and you have to tell me if it is based on Unity or based on Unreal.
Shit, okay,
Easy peasy.
all right, 50-50. These are the odds I like. Anytime I was taking a big test in class, I would go through the entire test first and see how many of them were multiple choice
questions
or true and false, and I would set those aside for the end and kind of tally up in my head like, all right, if I got half of all of those right, what is like roughly my test score going to be? And then I just try to pump through on the essay questions as much as I could for bonus credit.
Is that how you're supposed to do that?
That's how I did it.
I mean, wouldn't it make sense to do all the multiple choice ones and get the solid?
No, because often there was extra credit for essay questions, so I would just go through really quick on the at the end on the multiple choice, and if I knew it, I knew it. If I didn't, I'm just picking C, right, or whatever seemed like the quickest one if I had time for process of elimination. But then the essays I'd spent all the time up front doing, so I could make them extra long to get as much details in there for bonus points. And I did graduate high school, although I did not know until I got back to my seat with my diploma and opened it and saw it was a diploma that they had not given me a fake diploma because I was pretty convinced I hadn't graduated.
Look at you.
Look at me.
Your high school diploma over me.
The one that I probably didn't deserve. Yes.
Yeah. See, the thing is, when you get a 99% on your GED exam, they don't actually care how good you did on your GED.
You weren't valedictorian?
I mean, if me and the other fucking stoners at the county courthouse or whatever,
you didn't get your GED with honors.
Yeah, exactly. You get a little box of Cheetos or something.
Ooh, that sounds good.
All right. So the questions for the quiz. First one.
Yes.
Hearthstone. Blizzard's Hearthstone. What engine is that made in?
Okay, let's think about this. Hearthstone, user accessible. They have it on mobile. I'm going to say Unity.
You are right. Hearthstone is on Unity. Yeah. All right. How about the next one? Subnautica.
That is definitely Unreal Engine.
It's Unity.
Really? Holy shit, you can do a lot with Unity. Mm-hmm. I always picture it as not 2D, but a lot of flat graphic styles, right?
That's always how I thought about it too, yeah.
Like a lot of Metroidvania games or pixel-based games or a card game. But, oh shit, all right.
Yeah. Ark Survival Evolved.
I love this game. I'm trying to go through in my head of it. I'm going to say Unreal Engine because it's unreasonably large file size.
That's correct.
Yeah.
This is the one time you wished you'd paid attention to the intro videos on all those.
Instead of just mashing whatever button lets me skip. Yeah, it is unreasonable in its file size to today's date. I think it's 180 gigs or something. It's stupid.
Jesus.
Stop it.
Yeah. All right. Rust.
Played it a few times. It was revolutionary for letting you hang dong. And choose dong length. Might not have been the first game to show a penis or a vagina, but it let you choose your genitals a little more. That might have been a new thing.
Well, you forget that you also got to choose this while you were crucified, I believe, was the original character creator.
Yeah. Also, a way better. I don't even know if this is like a way better genital system than like a cyberpunk, if only for the fact that you have to see your junk for a long time in Rust before you are able to clothe yourself properly.
Yeah, well, I feel like there's something more meaningful with both of those games about that because like it's part of like being unclothed and naked and afraid is like kind of mechanically important. While Cyberpunk, it's like here's a pair of pants, here's another pair of pants.
Spend an hour
like
designing yourself and then never look at yourself ever again.
Yeah, absolutely never because you look like a space clown. All right, so what's your answer with Rust?
Damn it, I was hoping you'd give me a pass on that. I'm gonna say Unity.
You are correct.
Hey.
In fact, the creator of Rust announced that there will be a Rust 2 in a rant against Unity, in which he announced that Rust 2 will not be in Unity.
Fuck
so.
yeah. All right.
Who I suspect is also the Gary of Gary's mod. I think he's the same guy. Oh,
shit. Okay.
Yeah, so like...
Dope. I had no idea.
Yeah, everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think it's the same guy.
Let me just preface this with a small little mini rant going back to Unity for a moment. Well,
okay.
Staying within this lane, I guess. What sucks about this the most is there are really hardworking, good people who like video games that work for that company who are being so fucked over and would have never in a million years wanted this kind of thing to happen. This did not happen at those levels. Those people are going to get so utterly screwed. Even if this company goes under, they're the ones that are going to feel it first. So fucked up. Anyways, continue your quiz.
Continuing our dong hanging adventures, Conan Exiles. And actually...
God, this really could have been like a dick quiz instead. Yes.
That thing I said earlier about the character designer, I meant Conan Exiles.
Oh, you're right. That's the one where they're crucified. Yes. Yeah. Also a game that I bought purely because of the genitals. The moment I heard like a god can walk across the land and their dicks hanging out, I was like, all right, this is the kind of game I want to get behind.
Yeah, I think Rust actually randomizes all your genitals. You don't.
Oh, maybe it does.
It's based off
maybe
of
it
your
does.
Like, hash or whatever.
Still better. It is based off your hash. You're right.
I think it also randomizes your sex too.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know about the sex, but I know you're right. It does randomize you based on your hash. Fuck. Maybe I need to get back into that. I'm gonna say Unreal Engine for that one.
That's correct. Yep.
Little janky feeling.
Yeah. Sea of Thieves. I don't know anyone who's played that game.
No one. People wouldn't play it. They don't have any way to have a chef's outfit in that game. Such a fucked up thing. It's fine. I've gotten around it. I'm pretty much the epitome of a chef's outfit in the game now, but whatever.
Speaking of which, have you sold your Jeep yet?
No, it's still being used. That's a whole different story we didn't get into another time because the local Hyundai place, like, shit's gone down there. It's fucking buck wild. So
okay, well,
that'll be it for another one.
Stay tuned for more Jeep Watch.
Oh God, yes. So much anxiety going on right now.
Sea of Thieves.
Rare game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm gonna say Unreal Engine.
You are correct.
Hey, that is one of those that I play a lot, but I absolutely skip through all of that.
No, that's fair. That's very fair. Pillars of Eternity.
The game that I've tried to play so many times and quit like 3 hours in every time. And I'm like, well, that was a waste of a half day of downloading it. All right.
The beginning of the CRPG renaissance that I, for the life of me, have not been able to get past the intro of.
Yeah. It's a rough one. That one probably was Unreal.
That was Unity.
Really? Okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So, Sable, your favorite game?
My favorite. I actually have some. We'll save that for after this, but it's coming back up. I'm gonna say that was Unity, just because I'm mad at Unity and I'm still mad at Sable.
That's correct.
Fuck yes. My anger is justified.
All right. Lord of the Rings Gollum, the much reviled
God.
game that
God,
killed
that's probably Unreal Engine, only because they were like, this is going to be really realistic, guys. Like, you're not going to believe how real it feels to be Gollum.
You're correct. It is Unreal.
And that's like, I already did that. Like, I am Gollum. Like, I've been cloistered. We've all been cloistered away for years. We are all Gollum at this point. We am become Gollum.
Yeah.
Mm.
We also lust after
Our precious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Sonic the Hedgehog. Just
My precious for me is just normal social interaction again.
oh, that's cute.
Oh.
Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
Oh, such a good game. I think that one might have been made in Unity, though.
That was actually Unreal.
Okay, good. So I can re-download it without feeling guilty. It's a really good one. The sequel's coming out soon. Ish.
Yeah, also made in Unreal. I think
Nice.
the first one was made in Unreal 4, and the sequel will be in Unreal 5.
You have not played that yet, have you?
No, I know I haven't.
It's got to. If it's not on the list, we need to put it on our list, and we'll play it.
It is on the list.
Okay. It's good.
7 out of 10. Pretty good.
Not bad at all. And only a few of those was I actually guessing. Well, I was guessing on all of them, but I felt pretty confident on most of them that I got right.
Yeah.
And then save a lot of spite.
Some of those I knew, because I also first, when I first think of Unity, I don't think about 3D games as well. So I thought some of those 3D ones would catch you up, but because after Subnautica, you just
I adapted.
got me sussed. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I think we have figured out our next quiz, which is what games allow you to adjust or modify your genitals. It might not be that long a quiz, but
No.
well,
I can think of 4 games already.
So
it's not really a quiz. That's
enough,
just a
then.
list at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can throw in a few where it would seem like you'd be able to, like
Yes.
like a Sonic Frontiers.
You can. It's just you have to try real hard. Although to be fair, like I don't know that the Sonic, the people who appreciate Sonic in that specific manner have ever necessarily needed actual genitals.
The people who have appreciated Sonic in that matter draw on their own genitals to those characters. I've seen the images online.
Well, I've seen a lot of things online.
That's true.
All right. So what have you played this week?
I played a couple games. So I've been playing Lies of P, the Pinocchio game. Was very excited for it to come out.
Pinocchio Souls.
Yep, Pinocchio Souls. It's really interesting. I thought it was going to be too weird for it to work, but they've come into this really cool idea of it where like puppets are automatons that have been created as a almost slave race in this Victorian society. And they revolted in some way. Well, they say they malfunctioned, but as I'm reading into the story, it seems more like maybe they revolted against humanity.
So it's Firenze, become human.
It's, yeah, a little bit with like... Maybe there's an extraplanar god involved as well. I haven't, like, it's hard to tell because, you know, it's normal people and these, like, broken puppets. And then all of a sudden it's like a beast that lives within another beast that once maybe was a human, like, as a boss. Like, in the boss phase fights, right? Like, it's these transformations of, like, well, this doesn't seem right. But, like, it's one of these games. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So how does it feel to play?
It feels really good. It feels smooth. It's actually more like a Bloodborne than one of the Dark Souls games.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Except in, like, if I had to compare it just to From Software games, it's Bloodborne in its aesthetic and its offensive combat. But in the defensive, it's actually a lot more like Sekiro, where you are trying to time perfectly your blocking. You can dodge in this game. You can absolutely dodge. I've not found it to be as effective, though, as blocking, especially if you get a perfect block. Your weapon has damage it takes, durability. It's not permanent. You just have to like use an item to get it back up, or rest at one of the resting sites to get it back up. Just like every other game, it's got an area called a stargazer that you rest at. They still pull in like Jiminy and wishing stars and angels and all that shit into it. But
that's interesting because I thought that would have been a Disney thing.
No,
they say Jiminy Cricket does not sound like a
Gemini.
Italian
Gemini
name.
is how they pronounce it in this one. They just changed the pronunciations of things a little bit, but it's this nice blend of that kind of rallying, regain your health system that Bloodborne was known for when you fight, with Sekiro's perfect blocking mechanic or dodge. Like the enemies literally turn red instead of having a red symbol pop above their head like Sekiro did. But it's fun. It's hard. It's really hard. They did a good job with it not just being straightforward on weapons, and like every weapon in those games have stances in a Soulsborne style game. So that weapon has its own attack animation, where in this one they do, but most weapons can be separated into two parts, the handle and then the blade, or like the actual damaging piece of the weapon. So depending on the handle you're using and the weapon, those stances for attack animations change, which dramatically change how you can interact and play the game. Because if you're in a narrow area, this has good hit detection against walls and things like that. So if your weapon hits something before you can finish your attack, you're probably not going to hit your enemy, right? You can't swing a great sword in a narrow hallway. I like it. It's growing on me more and more. I did hit one really bad glitch, though, that made me have to restart my entire playthrough, like brand new game.
Oh, no.
I encountered early on, you're supposed to go and find a person and rescue them. And I got to this kind of hub that everyone kind of meets up at, right? Like the NPCs all go to this one place. This is your main area to go and upgrade things, buy stuff before you go back out into the world. And I was just exploring around. I saw a door. I ran towards the door, and as I was approaching it, still running, I hit the button like A to enter, thinking I'm just going to open the door. It was a locked door, but my character kind of slid during the animation to try to open it and got through the door.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was still locked, so I couldn't get out, but the character that I was supposed to go find and save was in there, because you're not supposed to clearly be in there until after you save them. Then it unlocks the door. And so I talk to them, and this whole cutscene sequence starts, and I go into this new, like, thing, and I don't want to get too descriptive, but this menu pops up with even more like skill tree customization, but I didn't have the currency to use it. So I backed out and I was like, all right, I'm not supposed to be here yet. I had an item in my inventory that lets me kill myself essentially to like respawn. So I did that, thought nothing of it, kept playing, saved them, legitimately got the door unlocked, went to talk to them. Cutscene doesn't start again. I now have the currency to do this, but I go and use the object that I'm supposed to use to now do these skill tree upgrades. That option's not there anymore. It's just not available.
Oh, no.
So I looked online for a while to see, like, did I miss something? Is this going to appear more? And they're like, no, that's the exact moment that's supposed to unlock. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to shut down the game. Maybe come back another day and it'll be fixed in a patch or something. It wasn't. So I just had to grin and bear it and just start over.
At least it was relatively early, it sounds.
It was. I got back to where I was supposed to be, like, within a couple hours. But still, that...
Well, I mean, that's a glitch for the speedrunners.
That's the first thought I had, was because it turns out it's not just there. I got stuck behind, like, a chest doing the exact same thing. Like, I ran to open a chest, and my character passed through the chest during the opening animation. It was on the other side, but it was in a corner, so I was just stuck in the corner then. So I had to kill myself then. So Yeah, unless they patch that out, which hopefully they do. There's probably speedrunners already using that, I bet, online.
Yeah, I bet.
To get through areas. Yeah. But that game's pretty intense.
Yes.
As most of those games are, you fight a boss a bunch, you beat your head against the wall, and eventually you got to take a break. So Chants of Sennaar, it's a game like Sable, but not exactly.
In the art style.
The similarities are the art style, and in the beginning at least, when you speak with people, you have no clue what they're saying. You have to kind of infer through either where they are, maybe they're pointing to something, maybe they're performing an action. Sometimes you just have to know what the words mean before you can really fully understand a person. There's murals around, there's, storefronts. So you'll start to see signs and you start to try to infer, like, well, what does that sign mean? Does this little, like, parentheses symbol mean a store? Like, the purchasing of those types of items? And you have this little book that you get to go through, and not only do you get to guess what the words mean as you see these runes around, but eventually you'll start to fill in pages with what you know they mean. So the world slowly starts to make more sense. The story of the world starts to make more sense around it. And then it's just a fun puzzle game on top of that. You got to find keys. You have to complete these little puzzles, especially once you start to learn the languages. A lot of the areas that seem like you're not ready for them yet, you'll go back and, like, it might just have the instructions on there, right, of what you're supposed to do. Or you start to learn the relationship between the religious class, the warrior caste, and the peasants, right? So then you start going, oh, okay, well, this puzzle wants you to, like, stack people in order of their importance, that kind of thing.
Well, I have to say, looking at this and hearing you talk about it, I kind of want to do this for the podcast.
Yeah, it's really fucking dope. I was almost going to buy it for you so we could do it for the podcast. I'm loving it.
Yeah. I think that's totally a good idea. Not that you should. I think it's totally a good idea that you should buy it.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a good idea that we should do this for the podcast.
Yeah. I'd like to a lot.
But it looks wicked cool.
It is so fun. Yeah. So maybe everyone will hear more about it here soon.
Yeah.
I should probably stop talking about it then.
Wouldn't be the first time we did that with one of our weekly games.
Yeah.
Speaking of games we've already talked about a bit,
yes.
I finally got around to playing 2 Point Campus.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I played 2 Point Hospital. I was very excited when it was announced because I was a big fan of the old Theme Hospital, the Bullfrog game, which this is a spiritual reboot successor of 2 Point Hospital was. And I liked it a lot, and so it was interesting to see what they would do with 2 Point Campus, like how much of it would just be like copy pasted the same mechanics from the first one, which I would have been fine with, frankly, if they but they mixed it up. They had some new stuff to it. There's some quality of life stuff from the first one from Hospital that they've changed for Campus. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
It is both like very similar to 2 Point Hospital to the point that they feel like direct, like they exist within the same world, not just in like the art style being exactly the same and all that jazz, but also the gameplay, but different enough that it feels like a very different game, which is it doesn't feel like a copy paste, like playing with a different coat of paint on it, where they replace Hospital with University. I like it a lot. The one, I wouldn't say the problem I have with it, but generally speaking, with like big kind of strategy games and city builders like this, when they're like the more strategy focused and like infrastructure focused and like making you kind of do math and like logistics in your head, one thing I found is that I have a good time at the beginning when I'm trying to figure out the mechanisms of a game, and then like I have a good time toward the end when I figure out now that I've figured out how everything works, making it so that I can kind of use that to the best So I can it gets basically I find it fun at the beginning when it's hard because I'm trying to figure things out, and I get fun. I think it's fun at the end when it's easy because I figured everything out and I can put them all. I can use all those systems effectively, but there's like a middle part to this game where like I figured everything out, but it's not really throwing me the challenges of the late game yet. Where I'm kind of just like, okay, let's move on to like the hard levels or something, please. Despite the fact that just like 2 levels ago I was kind of struggling. So it's like one of those things where like I was having so much trouble with one thing that I focused. I guess this happens too sometimes in other video games. It doesn't necessarily mean to be a strategy game, but a difficult boss in Dark Souls, for example, where you like focus so much on like beating that one boss, and then the subsequent bosses are easy because you put work into figuring out that one boss. That's kind of where I'm at with this right now. There's a level where you don't make income the way you normally do in other levels, and it was kind of hard for me at the beginning, but then I figured out like how to game that, and then by gaming this other way of making money, I also like kind of figured out how to make it really easy in other ways when you went back to like kind of the normal system setup. So
I gotcha,
but I like it.
Yeah, it's the first one of those games I played actually, because you'd gone on about Hospital for so long when we were first kind of starting to talk about video games a bunch together, that when that came out I was like, well, let me try this out. It seems like a lot of fun. Loved it. Super fun game. I don't think I've fully beaten it all the way, but it's still installed. I'm enjoying it a lot. And then they had a sale for Hospital on Switch, and I was like, oh, perfect. I can play basically 2 Point, but now I can take it with me wherever I go or when I'm in the bathroom. Fantastic. And you're right. It doesn't feel like a stripped down version of the sequel, Campus, right? Hospital feels just as authentic in its... The mechanics are very similar is what I'm trying to say. It really does feel like not quite a DLC add-on, because they upgraded a lot to it. But man, it is... I never knew a management game like that would be so fun. I'd never really tried my hand at them. Like, even when I played Sims, I was never really... Like, I was there for the story. I wasn't there for, like, the minutia of building things. That's never been my bag. Or at least it didn't used to be.
Yeah, I feel like you with these kind of games, you end up with ones that make you have to pay attention to the systems, and then they have those systems well balanced, and it makes sense. You have the ones that are really hardcore, but like are so unbalanced that you just kind of need to figure out 1 or 2 things, and everything else doesn't matter, or it's impossible to figure out. And then you have the other ones where it's loosey-goosey, and it doesn't actually matter what you try and do because it's just kind of trying to make things fun for you. I would probably, like, I think the example of the latter is probably like the Planet Coaster games, or Planet Zoo as well, and the Jurassic Park version of that, where they don't actually care if you make money, or they kind of do, but it's more about making a pretty park. It's not really trying to make things like a simulation by any means, or a business sim. And then the other hand, you have like completely obtuse games like, well, I can't really think of any off the top of my head.
RimWorld.
I think
RimWorld.
Well, RimWorld I feel like is also like, it owes more to like the storytelling things of like Dwarf Fortress. But I think games that do this well are they usually sit on either end of that spectrum. And like, I guess Pharaoh, the city builder game, I think I would probably put in the very obtuse, but maybe sometimes to its own detriment. But this one's quite well balanced. I would like I think the Anno games are one of the few ones I would say exist in this kind of level of balance. Although some of the 2 before the most recent ones were probably closer to one or the other end of the spectrum. The future ones, which I did like. I didn't hate the future ones, but they did feel differently balanced than the the previous ones, or 1800, which
Still
is a
have not
masterpiece.
played an Anno, but the fact that City Skylines 2 is coming out soon, I'm just kind of waiting on any games.
I have to say,
like
Anno
that.
isn't actually a city builder. Everything looks like a city, but it's really like
More
it's
like
more
a
like
colony sim then?
Factorio. I would probably like you're worried about supply chains, and I mean it
Okay.
is a city builder, but like it just doesn't care so much about. There's so much. It to me like I mean maybe it's because I played Anno games for so long, but it devolves into math so quickly that it and no, that's not a bad thing. I've played hundreds of hours of Anno
Sure.
1800, and the previous ones as well. But actually, that would be a good thing. Segueing into to perhaps the end of the podcast, and
I think that's appropriate. It's a little
the-
over time, but we spent some time coming up with names before this.
But to segue into self-promotion, there will be a video coming up on our YouTube channel in which I go through Crusader Kings 3 with Mike.
Yeah.
Get
me
which
smart.
I'm going to be called Finding the Fun. And I think Anno 1800 might be a good one to do if and when we are done with Crusader Kings, because
I'd be
that's
down
another
for
one
that.
I think I could help you find the fun.
Okay. I like it.
But yeah, look out for that. Look out for we have other stuff on YouTube. Mike's still got his Outlast series going.
Yeah, I'm going to try to, in earnest, finish that up this weekend and start Daymare up here because it looks fun, and I want to get it out while it's still in the minds of people fresh.
Yeah, I look forward to that personally. While you're there, you could subscribe or
If you're so
like or
inclined.
comment. Yeah, and if you're listening to this on a podcast catcher, doohickey, you could like us there
Yes.
or rate us.
One of those
or-
podcatcher doohickeys. Uh-huh.
I don't
We're
know,
on
man.
all
I'm
the
fading.
doohickeys.
It's late here.
Oh, man. I don't even know. What happens when the time change? I'm so bad at this. When the time change happens again, are you going to be further ahead at that point than us?
No, I'll be less far ahead, but only for 2 weeks.
Okay, I thought you were going to say, but
So-
only for 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's just that one day and for like 2 hours of that day. And then I'm so far ahead of you, it's not even the same year. All right. But for
This is
2
what happens.
weeks.
You let Lewis Carroll design the daylight savings time schedule. And then next week we have.
Yes.
Speaking of bad Lewis Carroll jokes, we're playing Gex
Fuck yeah, we
2.
are.
Enter the Gecko
Enter the Gecko.
with our special guest Marcus
Yeah.
and his new microphone.
Yes. My old microphone. If you miss hearing what I used to sound like before I got the upgraded microphone, too bad. But
Wouldn't
yeah.
that be whack if like our voices transferred with our microphones? Like just
Whoa.
you could just take on someone else's voice.
Whoa. It's like stealing a soul through a photograph, but
Yeah,
in
man.
audio format. Damn.
You can tell I've taken 2 Benadryl with my.
I was just thinking to myself, I actually put myself into such of like a little bit of a shaky anxiety rage with that Unity shit that I'm going to have to get a little high after this, I think. Calm myself back down.
There you go. There you go.
Listen to some chill
will.
music.
Yeah, break out that Enya.
You know my tastes perfectly. Yes.
I don't know, man. I like Enya. I imagine if I was getting high, I'd probably put on Enya.
I'm not shitting on Enya, but that's not what I first think of when I'm like, relax.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, what is your first thing you think of when you think of relax? Frankie goes to Hollywood.
I was gonna. No. God damn it! You took my joke. It's not gonna be better that way. All right.
Sorry, I really should have.
It's fine. It's fine.
Just because you tee it up doesn't mean you got to hit the ball, Arvid. All right.
No, you play all positions in volleyball. That's how you win. You push everyone into the sand. That's why it's made of sand. Okay, or golf, whatever. I guess that's
don't know.
technically where it would come from. Still, push everyone into the sand pit.
There's a sand pit? Oh, in golf.
Sand
Not in
traps.
volleyball.
Yeah. Well, there's sand in
Volleyball would be-
volleyball. Beach volleyball.
Well, beach volleyball.
That's the only volleyball you should be playing.
Why?
Because it just feels wrong if you play it indoors. You're a fit athlete doing very minimal athletics. Like, do it outside and have us be able to look at you in some way, right? This is not gendered. I am not being sexist against women. I'm saying, hey, if you're a buff dude too, get into that little like Euro swim thing, little Euro thong.
I thought you were just saying it's like a weird place to have volleyball. In the same way, like when I see badminton indoors, I'm like, that belongs in like a.
That probably would have been a
backyard.
more acceptable take for me to have. But now I really feel like I'm spiraling. Did I somehow take your Benadryl?
No, but like whenever I see like badminton indoors and like professional Olympic badminton or whatever, I don't know. Do they play Olympic badminton?
I'm sorry.
It's always just seems.
Can
weird.
you
It's like
one more time say that word?
badminton.
I mean, sure.
How would you say it?
Badminton.
Badminton? Like
Yep. Just
the worst
that
of your
end
two
does
gloves?
not. Yep.
Badminton.
Badminton. I know it's spelled badminton. I've never heard anyone pronounce
Well,
it.
you have to
way.
do the other thing. Badminton. You say badminton.
Badminton.
Badminton. Anyway, it's a bit like seeing croquet played, like Olympic croquet.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna get. I'm cutting everything after that. After when we said you should listen to our podcast. So goodbye.
Goodbye, people. That
Next,
is gonna have to be edited out.
what?
Whatever little pulling through the teeth noise that was. You'll hear it. You'll hear it when you play it back through.
That you made?
No. You made.
What?
You'll hear it. You'll hear it.
What does it sound like? I'm confused.
It sounded like
What-
someone pulling a little bit of saliva through their teeth. I wouldn't try to
Okay,
replicate
well, that'll
it.
be fun.
It'll be fun.
All right.
See if
Yeah,
you can spot the sound that made me shiver.
Yeah, I was actually the voice of Sauron in those cut scenes from Return of the King.
Fuck, I can tell.
Had to stop brushing my teeth for a while there. All right.